Well, welcome to another episode of High Impact, a podcast for leaders. My name is Josh Vanada, strategic advisor and leadership team coach. And today I'm joined by Hardy Smith. He has had a new number of corporate, nonprofit sector, and local government leadership roles. He is the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Stop the Nonprofit Board Blame Game, which you can actually see the cover of that just over his left shoulder. And as a consultant and speaker, Hardy works with associations, nonprofits, and chambers of commerce who want to benefit from a positive, productive, and fully engaged board. Hardy's results-focused approach was developed in his 30-year career in the high-performance world of NASCAR racing. Hardy, welcome to the podcast.
Josh, thank you so very much. You and I have some common interest in the world of racing. So whenever you and I are together, we always enjoy sharing a story or two, and we might just have one NASCAR experience to share today. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So Hardy and I met a few years ago at the Institute for Organization Management, which is the continuing education arm for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And I taught a class there on events, and I had used quite a bit of my own experience in running events, as Hardy mentioned with NASCAR, for those of you who know that part of my story. And so we hit it off, and we've stayed in touch. Um, Today, we're going to focus primarily on communication in our conversation. It's something that I think what Hardy's going to talk about today will certainly benefit anybody in a leadership role, whether in for or nonprofit sectors, but it'll also benefit all aspects of our life because communication is central to what we do with our kids, with our spouses, our friends. Um, just to get us kicked off, Hardy, why is effective communication such an important aspect of leading successfully?
Josh, I appreciate that question, and this is let me kind of help set the stage. Um, I have found through my various stops along the way on the Hardy journey, if you will, it hasn't mattered if it was in the for-profit world, and my 30-year history in the world of NASCAR racing is certainly about for-profit. That's not a nonprofit for sure, right? My work with nonprofits, chambers, associations across the country as a speaker and a consultant, in doing city leadership work for 18 plus years, whatever my own volunteer involvement, without fail, I have come to understand and oh, let me add in a currently on 51 years of marriage with my wife. And by the way, that's like 51 years together. That's not accumulated from different relationships. That's us together. So, um, and all those experiences have helped me have a tremendous appreciation for how important. Now, audience, pay attention to what I'm going to say. Good, effective communication is. So, for those who might be in the world of nonprofits right now, is in a nonprofit leadership role, I know exactly what you're thinking. You're thinking, great, Hardy's going to tell me I'm not communicating. No, didn't say that. And if you're a leader in the corporate world, I'm not telling you you're not communicating. What's not happening, if you're, so here's a quick test, audience engagement test, Josh. Um, so are you sending emails and they're not being opened? Are you sending out notices for a meeting and it's very obvious that those participating in the meeting get there and they're not prepared? Are you sharing information uh, and those you're sharing information with, Josh, just have a deer in the headlights kind of a look, and you've just created more confusion than clarity. So any of those things are going to be red flags that you're communicating. It's just not good communication. it's not effective communication. So some of the tips I'll be sharing with you, it's not about more. Again, repeating, it's about, are you communicating effectively? And then the what really drove this point home, Josh, for me and my understanding of how critical effective communication is, Josh, was when I was doing my original research work to understand why nonprofit volunteer board members weren't meeting expectations. To answer the question, why don't board members do what they're supposed to do? And that research with responses from board members, not staff, but board members, said the number one reason why good board members turn off is because of poor communication. So it's all about good and effective communication, not just more. And one other final um, point to help drive this home for our audience today on the high impact leadership. Anytime I'm working with an audience, and especially if we're talking about volunteer engagement, board member engagement, communication, communicating successfully, I'll ask, what's the number one most important element of a successful long-term relationship? And that's either personal, Josh, or in business.
Mm,
100% of the time, Josh, the answer comes back good communication. So there's the research here that's backing up what I'm sharing with you today. So it's more than just anecdotal. There's real world backup that for what the nuggets I'm going to share with you today. And oh, by the way, what's the most essential part of good communication? Listening,
yeah.
listening. And that's I'm going to share some communication mistakes, and that's at the top of the list.
Yeah. That's good stuff. What are some of the common communication mistakes that you've observed that are preventing individuals and organizations from having stronger communication?
Number one is not listening. And and I'm a talker. I'm just going to self out myself. I'm a talker. I love to talk. This is something Hardy, as Josh, has got to get better on. I'm trying. I'm trying. Um, and and if you're a talker, consider this. Communication should not be considered a competition. It's not communication combat. It's your are you communicate to develop a breakthrough, communicate to develop relationships, communicate to learn. And so just when someone is talking, are you actively listening? Or are you just waiting for them to take a breath so you can jump in and just start unloading with whatever that's on your mind? So the number one mistake is not being an active listener. And some of the how-to techniques real quickly, some quick fires here. Number one is good body posture, eye contact, make notes. Oh, by the way, this is a generational thing, Josh. If you're in the audience and you're in one of those younger generations, and rather than a notepad and pen like Hardy and old school might use, and you're pulling out your device and you're making notes, and the person who you're listening to and you're making the notes about, if they're in an older generation, do yourself a favor, let them know that you are using your device to take notes because you don't want to miss all the important nuggets they're going to share. make sure they understand you're not texting, you're not checking emails, because I found myself uh, really being judgmental. Well, they're not even paying attention to me. No, actually they are. So make sure you're communicating successfully about your note taking. Um, Ask questions. So if someone is communicating, ask questions about what they're sharing. Why does asking questions show you're an active listener? It shows you're paying attention. You can repeat back with the question what it is they just mentioned. So those are some very quick tips on showing, demonstrating that you're an active listener, and it does worlds for the ego of the person that who is sharing a communication. Shows them you think what they're sharing is important. Another thing to understand as far as a mistake goes to avoid, we all have individual personality preferences on how we want to be communicated with. We have our own communication preferences for preferred platforms. Um, do you want a printed document? Will an email document do? Will a text message do? Will an email do? Do you need a personal conversation, one to one? And understand that, and also understand that we all have our own unique communication styles. So, what do I mean by that? And this is important, and for two reasons important. Number one, the person, you need to understand the style, preference style of the person you're communicating with. So here's a quick NASCAR story. I know you'll appreciate this, Josh. During my time in NASCAR world, I worked directly for Bill France Jr. And I'm going to tell you that was a workout every single day, two or three workouts a day, every day. And if I was called into his office and there to give a status report, he would say, Hardy, I don't need a weather forecast. Just tell me, is it raining? Yes or no. That's all he needed to know. And I'd give a yes or a no. And then if he wanted to ask more questions, he would. But it was on me to understand his personality, his communication style preference. And because it wasn't he wasn't going to change. So I had to adapt to his style. Does this make sense? And then another thing that's important, you've got to not only understand your audience, and that could be an audience of one, it could be an audience of a group. And so I know you do a whole lot of group presentations and public speaking and training and all of that. So you've got to understand who it is you're speaking with. And sometimes, well, just about every time, 100% of the time, within a group, there are different personality characteristics and communication styles within a group. So you have to play to those and make sure each individual within a group is getting the communication style that they prefer. Now, the second thing I said I would share about understanding styles and preferences, you need to understand your own communication style. Again, the Hardy style, Hardy just likes to talk. Well, if I'm going to communicate with Josh, and Josh's style is more like Bill France Jr.'s at NASCAR style, and it's give me the details, yes or no, day or night, black or white. I need to understand that. If Josh happens to be a detail person, he wants more data. He wants more spreadsheets. He wants more research. It's up to me to provide that. If Josh really would prefer video and charts and graphs and visuals, I need to understand and communicate with Josh that accordingly. And if Josh is more of a entertainer type personality, and he's really extroverted in his personality, he might really want Hardy to deliver a song and dance and a marching band and fireworks. So it just depends. Does this make sense, Josh?
Yeah. How do you, it's interesting. You pegged me right away. My communication style is much like Bill Francis, just the facts, man. And so how do you determine what kind of communication style somebody has and how do you determine your own? What kind of tips do you have for folks in building their own self-awareness and the awareness of others?
Great question around self-awareness of communication styles and platforms of preference. Well, number one is ask. So if you're onboarding a new employee or a new volunteer or a new board member, um, just ask. And what are the preferences? What do you like? The second, and it takes a little bit of work, and short of doing okay, Josh, great to meet you, but before we can have a communication relationship, I need for you to take this personality test. Well, that's not really practical, right? So, but you can apply some personality test concepts and just you listen. You listen. So how does the individual communicate? Just pay attention. And this is where active listening comes into play. Are they short, succinct in their comments? Or again, the Hardy example, do they really like to tell a story about whatever the heck it is they're talking about? So pay attention to those things. Another thing you can do is um, visual inspection. Just take a look at their office. Um, if the office has a lot of pictures of the biggest fish they ever caught, uh, the hole in one, the first golf hole in one they ever had, crossing the finish line of the marathon, pictures of them atop Mount Everest. So what are those? What are those pictures all about?
Yeah, about their hobbies.
They're about them.
Yep.
They're about them. So the communication suggestion there would be focus on them. If they have a if have more pictures about um, uh, family members, lots of family members, pictures with lots of people in those, what does that tell you?
Yeah, their family is important, their friends is important, their relationships are valued.
Yes, and that means they're a people person. So they're interested in whatever your proposal might be, how it will affect others.
Mm.
So it's not necessarily about the cause, it's not necessarily about the business bottom line. It's about how will whatever it is you're sharing affect other people. So these are like subliminal tips that we give off every day that are actually very visible. Are they on social media? Do they post on social media? And if they do, what is it that they're posting? So you can do a little bit of homework, short. I would say legal stalking, and you can find out who your audience is. And if you're speaking to a group of people, a new group of employees, just what's the background? What are the background stories? Um, if you're new to a division, for an example, you're coming in new from outside, what are the challenges the division is facing? Have they had some upside down moments that major layoffs or big malfunctions in machinery or some kind of a big company problem that you're there to come fix, but you're not exactly sure, but there's a human element there. So, addressing those challenges so your audience understands you understand them and their challenge that they're dealing with. Is this helpful?
Yeah, so I'm curious because I think there are two communication styles that are oftentimes at odds, right? And they're I have a friend who refers to himself as an external processor. Um, I've yet to actually figure out what exactly that means. They describe it as thinking out loud. Um,
Okay.
and then you have the other communication style of folks who are short, succinct. They're like Bill France Jr. I'm curious in your experience, how did individuals with such different communication styles learn to communicate well? Because there are going to have to be sacrifices clearly on both
Sure.
sides.
Sure. Well, that what a great question, and that having a good answer and a good strategy for that very excellent question, Josh, is key to anyone in whatever sector they're in, the business sector, the nonprofit sector, whatever sector that they're in, personal relationships. It's about being willing to collaborate. So being a communication collaborator and being willing to listen and being willing to take a step back and let others share an opinion. Um, there's a great book I'm looking over on the bookshelf here, and it's on my list of recommended books I've read and recommend. They're on my website. One of my all-time favorites. The name of the book is Creativity Inc.
Hmm.
And it was written by Ed Catmull. Ed Catmull, he wrote the book about his time at Pixar and then Disney Animation. And before I read the book, I thought it was going to be about, oh, this is how Pixar made all these wonderful movies and cartoons, and this will be a fun read. Well, yeah, it was a little bit about that, but it was really about the process that Ed Catmull developed, all about communication, by the way, and relationships. But the process, Josh, that helped Pixar turn around from money loser to mega money maker. And it all is based on creating collaborative rather than having the different expertises. Is that a word? Expertises. Having the different experts and what they did. The writers and movie producers and the Imagineers and all the different people involved in making of a movie that at the time when Ed Catmull came in were just at war with each other. Everyone was in a different silo. They had to be right. No one else could be wrong. And just because there was no collaborative effort whatsoever, the Pixar movies were just bust. They were never delivered on time, and they were always millions and millions and millions of dollars way over budget. By creating an atmosphere of collaborative communication where people could feel safe and offering opinions and questions or comments were followed up with not yes but. When you throw in a yes but, that's a signal of I don't really believe what you're saying and you're wrong. But when you go to the yes and,
Mhm.
that's supportive. And I know you've heard this. That's supportive. And so then you offer your comment there. So we built this whole community around collaborative communication. So that's the key, understanding that we all are different. We all have different levels of expertise. We're all have different generational life lived experiences. And all of this, if you can get it all moving together in one single direction, you're bound for unimaginable success.
Yeah, okay. So it's uncovering the communication style work and then working together on it. Yeah, good,
Sure.
good.
And no one is wrong. So the external brainstorming and thinking out loud, okay, all right, well, okay, good. I'm good with that. If I just want to process it myself, okay, I'm good with that. Um, but it all comes together.
Hmm, hmm. So any other, you've given us quite a few, but any other communication tips or how-tos that you wanted to offer for our listeners?
Well, I think let me let me share this is my favorite communication story from the world of NASCAR racing. And I think this just helps wrap things up about being how important it is to be an effective communicator. Um, and this is the story of when it was the 1992. So it goes back a while, but I remember it very clearly. Josh, it was the 1992 Southern 500 at Darlington, and this was the race. This was the Winston Million at the time, and Davy Allison was had that $1 million dead in his sights. He was sure to win that. Larry McReynolds, for those who enjoy NASCAR racing today, Larry Mack, America's crew chief, that's the same guy. Well, Larry Mack was Davy's crew chief. Well, in 1992, remember this, audience, 1992, weather radar, as far as being on TV and accessible, was a fairly new concept. There were no iPhones with apps. There were no computer laptops with weather channel apps in the pits that you could see. Um, so you could if you wanted to check the weather, you went to the NASCAR hauler, and they had a weather at the time a weather radar at the NASCAR hauler in the garage. Well, rain is starting to be, you can see the dark clouds. It's weather, it's starting to look a little iffy. And Davey Allison, who was leading the race toward the end of the race, um, had to make a choice. Do we come into the, I know you've played, you've seen these choices have to be made every single race. They certainly did it this last week at Dover, I know, but you're having to make a choice. Do we come into the pits and fuel up, put on new tires, and let's go out here and win this $1 million? Or do we stay on the track and gamble that the rain is coming, and by staying on the track and having the lead, the race gets called and you win the $1 million, right? So that's the situation at hand. So Larry Mack has always been a very astute follower of weather. So he sends a crew member to the NASCAR hauler, Josh, to go look at the weather radar and come back and let him know so he can tell Davey either come in or stay out. Well, the crew member goes running down through the pits, runs through the garage, checks out the weather radar, comes, he's out of breath, he comes running back, he reports to Larry Mack. Larry Mack says, "Okay, how does it look?" Crew member Josh says, "We are good. We are good to go. So bring him into the pits and let's do it. And let's go win the race. We're good for coming in for the pits." Well, Davey peels off the track, and right while they're in the middle of having the car jacked up, the tires are off, fuel's going in, it turns loose and it pours down rain, and the race is called. Davey loses the $1 million. Darrell Waldrop is on the track. Darrell stayed out. Darrell wins the $1 million. Well, Larry McReynolds looks at the crew member, and he said, I I thought you said we were good to go. We were okay for coming into the pits. Didn't you look at the weather radar?" And the crew member Josh says, "Yes, yes, it was green on the whole screen. The whole screen was green. We were good. Green is good." Well, we know now that green is not good if you're trying to avoid rain. So it's about effective communication, accurate information, giving making sure you're sharing the right information at the right time. That's my favorite miscommunication story from the world of NASCAR racing.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable if you think about it. And it's a classic example of assumption being under communication. There were so many assumptions. He said Green is good, the crew member, and then Larry McReynolds, like, with saying, okay, we're good, and not asking any further questions like how far out is the rain or anything like that. I mean, it's just all around. It's a really great story. Well, Hardy, this has been great. It's been fun to kind of blend my love for NASCAR and your love for NASCAR, along with our love for businesses and helping organizations to thrive. So thanks for being a guest on the podcast this today.
Josh, thank you so very much. I certainly appreciate the platform that you offer for creating high impact leadership. Thank you so very much.
You bet. Take care, Hardy. And for all of our listeners, you can tune back in 2 weeks for another episode of High Impact, a podcast for leaders. Thanks for listening.